Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Crypto Night Show. Your host Superman in the house. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about the future of the future monetary system. Of course, that's going to be on the blockchain, and we're seeing a lot of that transitionary phase happening. So we're right in that transition. It's going to be glorious, and picking up positions now in the right stuff is going to be very, very important for your financial future. And of course, you'll be getting the benefit of being pioneers in the new monetary system on the blockchain. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about obviously some of the key trends that are making that happen, the key features of that, but we're also going to talk about some of the key players helping making it happen. And that is big financial flows, channeling traditional money into the new system on the blockchain and crypto, as well as all the financial innovation that's taking place in that space as well. So it's a really big game changer. We're looking at the leaders, the pioneers, the facilitators, and those are the ones you really want to get in on as a base part of your portfolio, because those are the ones that have probably arguably relatively the lowest risk, but with really huge upside. So we're going to get into all that. So we're going to be focusing on Michael Saylor from Bitcoin with his company strategy, and we're also going to be covering Ethereum with Tom Lee on Ethereum with his company Bitmine Immersion. And so the tickers for those are MSTR and BMNR respectively on the NASDAQ. So when we're talking about that, those will be tradable, of course, with X stocks, things like that. That's happening already in the innovative space with NASDAQ coming to put their X stock tokens, so you can trade stocks on platforms like Kraken, and it's going to go well beyond that, and many platforms. They're looking to expand as one of the proactive places into crypto with X stocks. So that will give them 24-hour trading, arguably, in the future, and that's kind of where they're wanting to head to at the moment. So some really powerful stuff happening. Hope you guys get a lot of insights out of this. And so we're going to get into it. We've got Eddie in the house. Hey, Eddie, good to see you. Hey. Now, don't forget, let's jump over into the X on X here. And don't forget to hit the repost button, right? So we're streaming right now. Just take a moment to hit that repost button right there, and hit the love button as well, and get in there. Even leave comments if you want to. Comments seem to be the biggest thing for the algorithm as well, but definitely hit the repost button there as well. So the future monetary system, Bitcoin strategy, Ethereum, Bitmine. Let's get into it, and let's do some of the insights here. So this is really just a quick overview of some of the stuff. So if you want to get into Strategy Club and get all the alpha, like all the stuff that's supporting this, this is kind of an introduction to that. The QR code is below me in the video there. Join up Strategy Club. It's just over $1 a day. Really great value there. You're going to be getting all the magic stuff that's happening for this crypto market, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of the things that we're going to talk about today. You can also find the links to Strategy Club in the links in the video description, and also pinned at the top of X, so you can do that too. And you join up through the Whoop store, and you'll end up getting a link to the Discord, and you'll get into the Strategy Club, private club in there. Well worth your time, so check it out as well. We've got a member in the house as well, and just in the chat there I see. Great to see you, Sean. Big shout out. Afternoon Chads. Yeah, afternoon Chads indeed. So get into Strategy Club, QR code there, and of course links in the video description pinned top of X. Now with that behind us, let's look at the Bitcoin chart right now. And we can see that we're currently in this little channel here, and we've got $70,652 at the moment. So obviously we've got a lot of choppiness going on with the war in Iran. Obviously US is pretty much destroying all the hardware, and they're spending the rest of their time now hunting. So they're basically hunting tunnels, hunting hidden armaments they haven't become aware of, and they're getting their intelligence is increasing by the day. So doing a lot of that stuff. They're taking out leadership after leadership after leadership, which is starting to collapse the regime. And so you got different parts of the regime trying to operate, trying to retaliate. You got things like that going on at the moment. You've also got, obviously, the Strait of Hormuz. We saw all the European allies, ironically enough, say we don't want to get involved with it. We want to go after Ukraine and let all our children die over there. We don't want to get into the Strait of Hormuz and secure that for oil flows, right? So we have seen some irony in there. Now they have all capitulated and done a big U-turn. And so that looks like they'll be, Italy, Spain, UK, Germany. It looks like they'll be coming, France to do some of the policing for the tankers to go through the Strait of Hormuz there and get oil flows. In the meantime, of course, the United States looking at alternative features to get the oil flowing. One of those, of course, is the Japanese. The Prime Minister is in the White House, and she is obviously facilitating that with their big oil reserves that they have. They're also looking at to get rid of sanctions on Iran so that they can get the oil at sea unleashed, which is, I think, about 10 to 14 days. So that's all going to expand. Typically, countries might have like 50 days of oil, depending on which country you're talking about. United States, of course, not in that position as a net exporter, and that was all under Trump, right, from his first presidency, President 45. But, of course, the Europeans, the Chinese, the Indians, they're all required, or Japanese, they're all required the oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz there. So they're obviously, they really need to participate in policing any oil ships going through. That being said, of course, you've got the US number of aircraft carrier fleets there, a number of Marines going in, and they're looking to secure a lot of that strait themselves. So there's going to be a bit of a process over the next week or two, but they're probably doing it at pretty big pace, 24/7, to get control of that whole area. So we may end up having an expensive policing exercise there for the oil, and that's some of the short-term stuff we're seeing right now. Now, typically in markets, you want to see crypto kind of get impacted and find the bottom in these sort of adverse events, because that means that when you come out the other side, you've got a huge upside. You've got a huge upside. So actually, I see it actually quite contributory towards a big rally this year and into next year. Obviously, we've got a few other issues in the future, like the midterms, but I actually see it pretty bullish moving forward there. So that's kind of where I see you right now. And we also see a correlation between the Magnificent Seven growth stocks, between software and, of course, crypto being a software. We see that correlation, and so we should see money flock to crypto even in the short term. So we're looking forward to that as well. So I'll make a few more comments about that as we move forward. We've got Sean in there with the up only. Nice one there, up only indeed. So we've got Bitcoin at the moment sitting below the 50-day moving average. And of course, that is running at 72,636. So obviously, we want to get back over that and start to move back up to the outside, right? So that's kind of the play on this. And we got the 200-day moving average sitting up here at 87,000. Obviously, that would be extremely bullish sign getting back over that, right? We also, after trying to chase down a golden cross, we're obviously played out a death cross here with the 50-day going below the 200-day. So the 50-day is in yellow and the 200-day in orange there. And so we're looking to try and break that formation and move to the upside. And really, I think we're going to be running away to some pretty incredible numbers there. Now, the ETFs and the digital strategies, treasuries, the DATs as they call it, so ETFs and DATs, these are like first layer protocols on top of Bitcoin. These are leading the way. They are funding a lot of buy pressure into Bitcoin. Remember that 90% of the trading volume is essentially in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So that's where all the big players come in, because there's lots of money to come in and out. So you can exit and enter and exit quite easily. So that's kind of the play. But it's still small by international markets, right? So 2.5 trillion for the crypto market. That's a small market, right? You got the fixed interest or debt market, hundreds and hundreds of trillions of dollars. Money market, bond market, credit markets, hundreds and hundreds of trillions of dollars. You've got the equity markets, hundreds of trillions of dollars, right? So in particular, you've got the Mag 7, I think it's about 40 trillion, pretty similar to gold, maybe 50 trillion, similar to gold market cap. And then you've got, the non-Mag 7, which is another, 40 trillion or something. So pretty big markets, all about 10x. The Mag 7, the non-Mag 7, the gold market's all about 10x maybe 15x the crypto markets right now, right? More like 15x of the crypto market. So a long way to go. But the digital asset treasuries and the ETFs are playing their role in bringing capital in. So ETFs traditionally through corporates and institutions, and of course maybe state and to some degree governments. And of course, the digital asset treasuries taking even a bigger role, right? A more active role, generally speaking, especially for the leading ones, right? The 5%, the sovereign put ones, as we call it, the strategy and Bitmine immersion, they are taking a much more active role. So we see Bitmine immersion, of course, which we're going to talk about, targeting the credit markets, and that's hundreds of trillions of dollars they can bring over into Bitcoin. And also we see Bitmine immersion targeting the future of finance, right? So, and mass adoption. So we've got some big themes happening with those, which we're going to get into. So at the moment, we got Bitcoin at $70,652. We're looking pretty good. I think we're looking in pretty good shape to the upside, even with this volatility. It's probably all going to bode well for the crypto moving forward. We had probably a little disappointment on the Fed. So the Fed's obviously going to be another. We got the midterms at the end of the year in November, but we've also got the Fed as well playing a pretty backward-looking role, and we're looking forward to a new chair which will have a forward-looking role and actually start to reduce interest rates. I still think we're overheating on interest rates, regardless of having the PPI number come in a bit high. I still think that that's losing GDP, losing jobs, losing incomes by that, and of course putting the housing market under a lot of pressure as well. So I think we still need to move the interest rates down, and we'll see how that goes by July, right? So at the moment, we've got obviously uncertainty with the oil, but I still think we're still high. It's too high priced. 3.75 compared to 3.1%. So I think we need to get at least a 50 basis points, if not 75, in there. But that looks like we won't get that till July probably, maybe even August at this stage. But with a new leader, with a new chair, maybe July is the play. So it's a bit of a shame, and it certainly will have impact on the economy. Too late Powell is going to be too late again. That's probably what's going to happen there. So that is where we've got a couple of challenges that are pretty obvious moving forward. The Fed always gets tested as well when you get a new Fed. So we've got a bit of that going as well. We might have a little correction during the year later on as well, but hopefully from a higher base, right? So that's the key. We have a correction from a higher base. It's not so bad. 20% correction, but hopefully we'll be higher than where we are today. All right, so that's some of the sort of the overviews there of where Bitcoin is. Now, some of the big themes here, of course, of Bitcoin has been a digital store of value. Well, obviously we saw that under pressure with the war. Obviously gets priced down, and then as the war sort of moves through after a couple of weeks, we see it start to rally up higher, which we kind of see there in the chart starting to move. So I think we're going to be pretty fine there. And of course, when risk on comes and surety about digital currencies, and the US is looking strong, that's the key part, right? The US is looking strong, net export of oil, not really too affected by these things, not affected so much by Ukraine, not affected so much by the Strait of Hormuz, but affected from security point of view, from the Iranian leadership having nuclear bombs, right? We're all affected by that. It's a false sense of security when you got prosperity going on and you got terrorists with nuclear bombs, right? So it's better to deal with the issue as tough as it is now, and it's long overdue, decades overdue to deal with it and get that done. So we've got a safe environment that we can actually be prosperous and enjoy, right? That's the idea. And it's a good move. Now the Europeans and others, they're all fools and idiots. We know all the stuff they're doing is pretty destructive, so they're never going to deal with the issues. In fact, they basically embrace these crazy nut jobs. We're having a problem with that everywhere in the West right now. So we got $70,652 right now at the Bitcoin. So I think we're really not too far away from the 50-day at 72. We've got another 2100. We've already tested that already. So I think next time it's going to be up and away. I think we're getting pretty close to that, pretty close to the bottom any time now. So that is Bitcoin. Now, obviously, Bitcoin still looking to be this digital store of value, but actually, I think there's a new narrative that's really supporting it, and we're going to get into that. Before we do get into the next narrative supporting Bitcoin, let's get into the the flows that are coming in. So one of the main vehicles for corporates with money coming into Bitcoin. Remember, 90% of liquidity is coming into Bitcoin and Ethereum, so really dominate that compared to the rest of crypto. The market cap's still very small, 2.5 trillion overall for crypto, and so therefore still has some limitations on the big players of traditional markets to come in. It feels silly saying that, but the other markets are hundreds of trillions of dollars worth, right? And they got much bigger plays going on. So it is something we will see hopefully re-rated, and we've got to get a lot of liquidity into the system. And of course, Michael Saylor is helping doing that through the digital asset treasury. We're going to look at that means, but we also got the big institutions now all jumping on board, right? The BlackRocks of the world, the Morgan Stanleys, they're all coming in, and all the other big institutions are all coming in as well. So we've seen that already happening, buying up a lot of these DATs, these digital treasuries, and of course setting up ETFs, ETPs, which is like a third layer product. We've seen those happening as well. But the ETFs are getting more sophisticated. We've now seen ETFs just not only are they going in for a vehicle for buying Bitcoin with custodial holdings, but also now getting into buying Bitcoin and doing more exotic things with it. So we're getting a little bit of that happening as well. So it's kind of cool. We're getting a lot of innovation happening. So that's kind of where we are right now. We can see actually on the flows that we actually had a pretty good run recently, and we've had a lot of green candles coming in to a Bitcoin. You can see that we've had obviously a few red days with the volatility we've got at the moment, but actually we're getting some pretty good numbers, and that's nothing compared to the historic highs of getting billion-dollar days, right? You can see some of these green candles here, billion-dollar days coming in, but I suggest to you that that's probably going to increase. Albeit you might see money's always going to flow relative to your risk and your goals to the most profitable vehicle, right? So ETFs, I'm expecting these to continue to blow up, to continue to move. They will fit the risk profile, tools and other things that certain institutions can use to invest in Bitcoin. And we're expecting something like 30% of a lot of the institutions to be using Bitcoin by maybe the end of this year even. At 29% is a number I've seen. So we're expecting a big ramp. Now, I've always said that's going to take 3 to 5 years at least to get up and going, because you've got to change, company constitutions, investment management, or risk taking, all that sort of stuff. You got to convince the executives, the boards, and all those sort of things. It does take a bit of time. It's not just all happening this year. It does take several years to do. And I think it's still looking pretty promising. And that's being advanced, right, by the White House backing crypto last year. That sent a big signal that the United States is going into the crypto space, and supporting regulation for that as well. And we've seen the GOP in particular support crypto policy. Last year, of course, we're going to talk a lot about the stuff when we get to Ethereum, but we've got the Genius Act and we've got the Clarity Act coming up. And we've also just had the SEC give us clarity around the Howey tests, what is security, what is commodity, things like that. So everything is going really in the right direction, guys. It is really looking pretty promising. So we're going to get to that in a minute. We've got a lot of money coming through the ETFs here. You can see at the moment the big ones. If we look at the holdings, we've got IBIT. IBIT is actually the biggest corporate holding, even bigger than Strategy, but not for long. Not for long, guys. We got 785,000 Bitcoin in IBIT. Remember that number, 785,000. And we got FBTC sitting at 221,000, GBTC 155,000. We got BTC at 51. We got ARK. Remember, ARK's going to be relevant for ARK investments going to be relevant for Ethereum, right? So definitely ARK is taking a big position in Ethereum. They're backing that for the relatively bigger winner, in my opinion. There, so we've got ARKB, we've got Bitto there with some. We've got BitB at 38,000. So these are the key ones, right? So just remember this IBIT one though, 785,000 Bitcoin are held. And we can see we've had pretty positive flows there so far, even with Bitcoin down. Obviously there's some red days, but I'm suspecting we're going to get some more billion plus days ahead of us. In fact, they're going to be even higher as Bitcoin rises, right? So you can see where Bitcoin, when it was rallying, you can see all the big amounts of ETFs coming in. A very, very green period between April last year and particularly through to October last year. And then we had the big liquidation event, remember, the market maker, the stablecoin depegging, and that was October the 10th. And we still haven't fully recovered from that, but it looks like we may very well be exiting the little, as Tom Lee would call it, mini crypto winter there. So that's kind of the play. So this is one of the main two big vehicles at the moment, bringing in capital. And you can see IBIT at number one there, 785,000 Bitcoin. Remember, there's only 20 million Bitcoin. We just hit that just last week, I think. 20 million, there's only 1 more million to come out, and that's over a very long period of time. I think the Bitcoin halving is in about 2 years, I think it is. So we've got about 450 Bitcoin per day coming out from miners. And that's going to be important as well later on when we come up to the digital asset treasury. So some pretty interesting things happening there with that. So I'm going to post the link to this in the chat there if you guys want to look at these numbers in your own time and go for gold there. All right, so let's post that. That is the link to the ETFs. So obviously a lot of money coming through there, and I suspect that that's going to really accelerate once Bitcoin starts going for that next move. It's going to be absolute game on. But you actually see, we're actually being pretty green. When there's a lot of fear, a lot of volatility, we actually had a decent amount of green candles there coming in on the ETFs. Now that's going to bring us to getting into the Bitcoin treasury. So the other big vehicle for capital coming in to Bitcoin, and I think this is going to be ginormous moving from now. And this last 2 weeks has really shown us that a genius product has hit the markets now, and we're going to watch it happen. It's going to be unbelievable, I think. So interesting picture, isn't it, that I got in front of me? Interesting picture. Look at the two guys that are standing together here. On the left, we're looking at the right, the two guys on the right. On the left, of course, I'm pretty sure that's a lady, two ladies there, and that's the guy on the left there. But if you look on the right there, we've got Michael Saylor. He is, the founder of Strategy there. He is the one which is running the Strategy Digital Asset Treasury, and he is the one that's innovating with his team, of course, around products to basically transfer value from the traditional credit markets, finance markets, the debt markets, talking about money markets, bond markets, private credit, which can be a bit risky, markets, those hundreds of trillions of dollars there, and get that moving out of those low yield opportunities. So between money market and bond market, you're probably looking at 2 to 4, maybe 5%. With the private credit, you're probably looking up to 8.5%. But you've got a lot of risk with that as well, with private ones and issues around liquidity, illiquid markets. And so you've got that sort of offering. So let's say 4 or 5% at best. And now you've got Michael Saylor offering products that are competing that are 2 to 3 times that rate. And so as money will follow, generally speaking, the incentive. And of course, that incentive is going to drive capital all the way from traditional markets, from the debt market. So forget the ETFs, which are doing a lot of institutions and corporates, maybe states and governments. Now we've got a vehicle that's actually targeting the debt market. So a different market altogether, essentially. Yes, you have some commonalities in the institutions and corporates using those, but actually we're targeting the debt markets in particular. And now he's vampiring that and bringing that over. And what we've seen over the last a couple of weeks, has been absolutely impressive. And we're going to talk about that. So pretty big deal. So we've got, on one hand, we've got Michael Saylor there on the left, leading the digital asset treasury, vampiring the credit markets, but offering them value, right? Offering them value, and all collateralized against Bitcoin, right? All collateralized against Bitcoin. Now on the right there, we've got Tom Lee. Tom Lee, of course, coming in lately, I guess you'd call it, but he's been around crypto for a long time. He's obviously come out of, I think originally out of telecom wireless. He was an analyst all the way back, I think in the late 90s. And he's earned his stripes, from 2010 onwards, doing both equities and crypto, and becoming one of the few crossover gurus between these two markets, right? The emerging crypto market and blockchain, and of course the traditional markets with stocks and bonds and debt and things. So he's a pretty, I wouldn't say unique, but pretty special group of people that have been able to do that. And of course, he's delivered to his clients, 100 to 1 returns, more returns there, and changed the lives of many of his clients. And some people say he may be the best retail strategist in the world, right? So for investments. So he is in the play right now, and he's been listening. He's been watching Michael Saylor. He's been obviously had a lot of chat discussions, and these two guys now are looking like they're going to lead the transformation of the monetary system on the blockchain. So these two are particularly going to be particularly influential moving forward, and probably maybe half a dozen people are going to be leading. And when I say leadership, visually leading and coordinating this revolution. And you're probably going to have people, still people doing the technical work, like Vitalik on the chain and his teams. That are developing quant resistance and all sorts of things. You can still have all of those people, but actually the people that people will follow the money, and these guys are the money guys, right? They're not only the money guys, but they're actually the guys that are doing the deals. They're doing the deals, and they're making things happen. So Michael Saylor on the credit market, debt market, and Tom Lee there on the new finance market. So including equities, all the other big things that we talk about, which we'll get to in a minute. So just really good to put some pictures, some faces to the guys that are leading this, and it's going to be transformational. So these guys are visionary. They are pulling together all their knowledge, all the client feedback, all that stuff. They're going to help the traditional markets come over to crypto. They're going to accelerate the education, bring them over. Of course, all you guys know about crypto. You've been in it for ages, probably. These guys here are helping a lot of the trade guys. The guys in the corporate that are just stuck in the old age, help bring them over. They want to come over, but they just need a bit of help there. And so I think this is where we're going to get a lot of stuff from these guys. So those are the two guys to really be watching there. All right, so let's jump over to the digital asset treasuries. We kind of covered where Bitcoin is at the moment, kind of covered some of the main themes happening. We've got obviously covered the ETFs when the money flows through there, but now we've got the Bitcoin treasuries, and they're not all created equal, right? Not all created equal. So at the top here, we've got Michael's strategy. They are holding 761,000 Bitcoin. Now remember, I showed you the IBIT ETF, exchange traded fund. That was 781,000. So you see the difference at the moment. It's only about 20,000 Bitcoin. That could be gone. That lead by the ETF could be gone in probably another 2-3 weeks. So keep a lookout for that. Strategy is probably about to eclipse the ETF there. So we'll keep a lookout. Obviously, there's if there's a lot of flows come through the ETF, it might take another week or two, but that's kind of the time frame. Let's say 3 to 4 weeks tops, and I think we might see strategy surpass that. We obviously got other ETFs in around that are pretty well known. The Mara Holdings, they got 53,000, but see how much smaller they are than Strategy. Strategy is just the one to rule them all. The sovereign put, they're heading towards that 5%, the 1 million Bitcoin. That's the play. We got 21 Capital out there too, with 43,000. We got Metaplanet, 35,000. Now Metaplanet's going to definitely be one to watch. Because they are going to try and copycat some of the products from Strategy, targeting the credit markets, particularly in Japan as well. That one's going to be pretty interesting. They've done a lot of raising, a lot of very clever stuff recently in the last week. Metaplanet is one to watch as well. So that's going to be pretty interesting. So we've got other ones here. Obviously, Bitcoin's dad treasury there, 30,000, etc. Bullish, 24,000, etc. So we're going to come back down to Strive here. So Strive is becoming a pretty interesting treasury. They've got just announced some more purchases for their Bitcoin reserve. Now they're much smaller, 13,600, but they seem to be doing what they say. They're accumulating Bitcoin, and they're also using the private credit products, or at least the credit products coming out of Strategy, these preferred stocks that we're going to talk about in a minute. So you got ones like Strive that are building essentially reserves and also offering dividend yield on the back of Strategy itself. So we're probably going to see more things like that happen, where we get to these almost a second layer protocol on top of the first layer protocols, like we would argue, or groups, companies like Strategy. So pretty interesting stuff happening there. We also see not only that, but we've got the Trump groups, right? The Trump groups are also moving, and they're doing a lot of stuff. Keep a lookout. These guys are going to surprise to the upside. Because obviously, the president's a Trump, right? So we got Galaxy moving up, right? So Galaxy is there. We got American Bitcoin from Eric Trump. That has now got 5,800 Bitcoin. Keep a lookout for that. So we've got lots of players. Gemini, of course, and many others. GameStop. They're all in here with a little bit of Bitcoin in their bags there. So pretty big deal. We also see, looking up around these 10,000 mark, we also see Trump Media and Tech with 9,500. So there's a couple of Trump groups there. And the other things that we're going to be looking out for is you got people like Grant Cardone, the property mogul, sales mogul, also looking to try and get up to 10,000 Bitcoin. Every time he does a big deal, he takes his discount value and ends up buying hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. And he's hitting his first target, at least, is 10,000 Bitcoin, which would put him right up here at number 13, in terms of this list. So there is a lot of stuff happening in that space. So the big one, though, is strategy. Strategy is changing the game. We saw the ETFs with IBIT and stuff like that is changing the games. We've got more ETFs coming for Bitcoin. I think we just had Morgan Stanley announce another ETF coming, and that could be big, right? So this could be even more money coming from Morgan Stanley, one of the biggest banks in the world. And now we've got, strategy on the move. So strategy is on the move, and they are doing something pretty clever, and this has really started to pick up the last couple of weeks. So this is what's so special about it. It hasn't been seen before, and they're targeting the credit markets. They say hundreds of trillions of dollars to put into little to go and buy Bitcoin, right? So basically, they're doing that. They're offering high yields, taking that money at a certain point when it reaches what we call a par level, and they are going to fund buying Bitcoin without diluting their common stock, which is the MSTR, right? So they've got a product called Stretch at the moment. They have a couple other products as well, but I just want to focus on the Stretch one. And this pays out monthly dividends, and they're looking to offer yields of 11%, 11.5%, I should say. But this yield can actually move to incentivize people actually issuing more shares of Stretch and raising capital to go buy Bitcoin. So they can move that yield around a bit to incentivize the yield. So we might actually see possibly a little raise in the yield rate, maybe 25 basis points or something like that, 50 basis points. We might see that creep up to 11.75 or 12%, and so that gets the people buying the Stretch shares. And at the moment, there's a 51 cent discount below the $100 par. So once it gets to $100 and or higher, that's when new shares are issued, and that's when new capital is raised. If it's below $100, there's no new shares issued, right? There's no capital being raised. There's no buying of Bitcoin with that capital. So it might take 10 days to 13 days. It's obviously we've had a lot more volatility at the moment, so it's probably just to maybe add on a day or two. We'll see, and we'll get back to money printing. But let's have a look where we're at the moment, so you can see we're raising no capital at the moment, right? So that just we're not expecting it this week, but maybe next week after 10 days, because it's just gone ex-dividend, right? Went ex-dividend. And so it's been a couple of days now, and so we're waiting for that flow on to happen. So maybe in 10 days, maybe less, a week, we might see that hit up to $100. Once it starts doing that, it starts, new shares are issued, and they keep the price down at $100. That's basically the idea. And people are holding these Stretch are getting 11.5% yield, and it's paid monthly, right? So pretty powerful stuff. The cutoff date is the 15th, so generally after the 14th. That will cut off, and that's how it's funding. But basically, this is a revolutionary product, right? This is revolutionary because you're offering, 11.5% versus the bond market might be 4%. So why would a big, conservative fund invest to get 4% when they can come and get 11.5%? It's just madness, right? Madness. And of course, the power compounding as well. You can double your money in what, 5 years, 4 years, or 3 years, 5 years, I think, something about 5 or 6 years. And so it's a game changer, absolute game changer. We've only just really seen this beast wake up in the last month, and it's looks like it could generate an incredible amount of money. And all that money from the bond markets, the traditional money markets, going into buying Bitcoin, it's a game changer. It also means that you don't necessarily have to issue as much common stock or MSTR to raise capital, because that's the normal way that they've been raising capital to some degree, and that buys Bitcoin. But it's also, it's also a little dilutive, right? Or at least not as accretive. And so this, by buying it through the bond market, raising capital that way, you're not diluting, the amount of Bitcoin in the treasury per se. You still have to pay the dividend but you're getting all that capital appreciation, and you're just paying part of that capital appreciation essentially back out as dividends. So you got to build up a little cash pile to pay out, but that's kind of the mechanism there, and it's a fraction of what is potentially to be raised. If Bitcoin's going to grow at 25 to 40% a year, then offering 11% is not so bad, right? So that's kind of the play there. It's a pretty clever product, and we could see it absolutely, utterly vampire the traditional markets. There's certainly a big percentage of it, and an increasing rate over time as people become aware and more comfortable with it. We're going to see a lot of innovation there. We're also seeing a lot of innovation around second and third level products built on top of this that are going out, raising capital and buying it and offering exotic variations of this money market deal. So if you're in retirement, or if you're a retirement company, this could be a game changer for you, right? And if you're an insurance company, it could be a game changer for you, right? You put a bit of this in your insurance thing, lowers the premium and the risk. It's quite truly transformative. You can see it starts to get applied to a lot of traditional businesses. It's basically changing the business model all together. And of course, this is part of the changing of the monetary system that we're talking about. People say, how can you just change the monetary system? We've got the Federal Reserve. Well, you're still going to have the Federal Reserve and all that, but you're actually going to bring a lot of the markets, traditional markets, from a money market, bond market, but a lot of that capital is going to shift over to the blockchain and digital. So you're kind of shifting a big chunk of the the applications in that money system over the blockchain. You're still going to have the Fed and the monetary supply going through the Fed, right? But what we're also seeing is that whole system, that whole Fed system, is going to be backed up by, of course, what? Stable coins, right? The future of stable coins is going to be digital, and that's where we got the Genius Act last time. And so the stable coin there is going to help prop up the US dollar, right? Because it's all backed, collateralized by US dollar treasuries, repos, and things like that, cash on hand. And so that is transformative, right? So you can see how the money supply itself is also going to get moved over, not just the applications like money market, bond markets that people will go to use that money and get yield on. So it's truly transformative. And that's the future of money, right? And it's going to get better from here because we've got a lot more to talk about, to unveil in this. So pretty exciting stuff. And so this is probably going to start ticking away next week. We'll probably cover it when it starts ATM. So ATM means at the market. And so once this gets above the strike price, or stretch price, as we say, not strike price, but stretch price of $100, that's the par value. That's when it starts minting money. In other words, raising shares, raising capital, typically from money market, bond market, private market participants, right? And they're learning about it. It's only brand new. This is what I'm saying. They're already raising an insane amount of money. 1.1 billion was the last money they raised before it went ex-dividend, and they bought a ton of Bitcoin. Remember, so 2 weeks ago, I think it was 18,000. Last week it was 23,000 Bitcoin, and of course they raised a few common stock there as well. But they completely, between those 2 weeks, they switched from issuing common stock to just funding it through this credit product, which is a preferred stock, right? So it is a game changer. Now, obviously, you can pick up these vehicles, stretch, MSTR through brokerage. So if you've got brokers, you can pick them up through there. They're obviously listed on the NASDAQ at the moment. In the future, of course, you'll be able to do it. In some cases, you can do it with X stocks on Kraken. I think you can pick some of these up. I'm not sure the liquidity and how that settles, but you can definitely do it on some of the platforms like that. And of course, there are second layer protocols, third layer protocols that are offering products like ETPs and things. So there's a lot of innovation on top of these things to give, ease of access, to offer slightly different compositions of capital and yield. And there's lots of these variations where innovation plays, right? That's what's so wonderful about the crypto markets. And so we're going to see a lot of those things there as well. I'm not talking about those ones today. So kind of things, if you want to find out, let me know in Strategy Club. Join up today. We've got the QR code there and the links in the video description and pinned to the top of X there. And so, yeah, we've got that all happening right now. So it's going to be pretty fun. And of course, that's going to buy tons and tons of Bitcoin and add it to the treasury there, right? So the BTC 760 needs to get to 780 to bypass the top ETF, IBIT, and both of those are vehicles for money coming in. But actually, the digital assets treasury here with the stretch product is really vampying the transferring the value from the bond market. And so Bitcoin is taking over the money market, the bond market, and the private credit market. That's essentially what's going to be happening here. It's a big deal. Hundreds of trillions of dollars. So our tiny little 2.5 trillion market is going to suddenly start getting funded and increase in liquidity through the traditional markets coming into these products. See how it works? So all that money, $100 trillion, comes in, buy this vehicle, and then it buys Bitcoin, and Bitcoin liquidity gets bigger, the price gets bigger, and bigger players can come in and out of Bitcoin through the ETFs and everything else like that directly if they want to hold their own custodial, and it just balloons from there. It is just a glorious thing. So, and it's all going to happen pretty quick. Is the expectation. So we're going to watch the next round, of course, for Stretch once it gets to $100. Obviously, there's been more volatility in the last day or two, but it was getting pretty close to $100 just the other day. So we're going to watch that, and in fact, we might actually have a chart of that. Let me see whether we've got the chart, the one I'm after here. The Stretch price here. I'm not sure if we've got it on that one, but you can see some of the other products here as well. We're not going to talk about that, but it is pretty awesome. So they've got other products here. Now SATA, you see SATA here, that's kind of 2 weeks apart. So you've got two products here kind of offering a monthly yield, but the SATA one, they're not really printing up there. Most of the value coming in from Stretch at the moment. But we will see combinations of SATA there and Stretch being used together to give you income every 2 weeks rather than every month kind of thing. I think that's what's going to end up happening there. Now, something else that's really important, there's a thing called a Sharpe ratio. It's kind of the risk to return, and this is unheard of, right? That Stretch would get to 3 is unheard of. I think that's the first time ever, and then it spiked up all the way up to over 5. So that is just amazing, amazing, breaking records already. Breaking all the theoretical maximums of traditional businesses with a Sharpe ratio like that. So pretty insane stuff going on there. Let's see here. I'm just trying to. You can also see the price and dividend here. So you got the price of the Stretch product. You can see it was $100, and then it goes ex dividend, and it goes down about 50 cents. And then it sort of climbs its way back to 100. Once it gets over 100, then new shares are issued, capital is raised, and it goes and buys Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin goes and puts in the treasury. And of course, the common stock MSTR gets the benefit from that accretive Bitcoin. And of course, last year, I can't remember the percentage, but it was it 70% last year increase in Bitcoin accretion. Holding MSTR is a pretty cool leverage, right? It's got a 1.2 premium at the moment in the market. Might end up being 2, 3, 4, 5 premium to Bitcoin in the future. Maybe 9 or 10. We'll see how it goes as Bitcoin runs away eventually. And of course, this is funding that runaway. Pretty powerful stuff. What else should we say about that? Let me have a look here. We've also got the dividend rate. See how they've been climbing the dividend rate? So since the September there, they started rising it 10%. And that's kind of when it launched last year, September, I think. And they just started ratcheting it up. Look at that. All the way, 10%, 11%. And now we're at 11.5%. And we might see another step ladder given this volatility. And that will help ratchet it up again as well. So keep a lookout for that. It is going to be potentially the genius gameplay there as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a bit more innovation in the space as well from strategy to fund buying Bitcoin up. And what does we say about this? Well, going back to the Bitcoin chart, we now got this big entity strategy buying 23,000, I think, with Bitcoin, 18,000. So if it does this, 2 out of every weeks, and then maybe it starts doing it every week, maybe the Stretch price goes back to $100, in the first week, not having to wait 10 days. Then we could, instead of just having 2 weeks of massive ATM funding, we get 3-4 weeks, just constant, apart from the ex-dividend perhaps. And of course subject to market volatility, but it's massive. This is massive. Helps setting a structural floor as strategy buys more and more of the Bitcoin supply. And remember, it bought something I think close to 9 times the amount of Bitcoin that was mined from miners. So miners are becoming almost irrelevant, and now it's only the sellers in the market, the existing people selling in the market, that are more relevant. And of course, when we hit $126,000 Bitcoin, we had a lot of OGs sell there. I think people pretty much accept a lot of edges sell there. They were obviously made huge returns, and we've come all the way back down. I think we touched 60K or something. Now we're back up, fighting for 70, 72K at the moment in Bitcoin. And maybe that very much was the bottom, and because now we've got these structural buyers, these big buyers coming in from strategy with this big machine, vampire in the traditional markets, funding the purchase. So we're going to be watching this narrative over the weeks and next few months, but I think we're just going to see an upward trajectory. I wouldn't be surprised if we start getting billion-dollar capital raise days from the bond markets, and that could go up and up and up over time as confidence comes in. buying up Bitcoin. And then, of course, that Bitcoin's not going to hit the market. It's going to be sitting in the treasury. And so, by the time that we could see Strategy accumulate a million Bitcoin, which is their target. Remember, they're at 760 right now. We could see them with this current run rate, get a million probably by the end of this year, if not earlier. So we're going to keep a lookout for that. And it's exciting stuff. And what will Bitcoin price be when they get there? They've got 240,000 Bitcoin. You got these ETFs, a new ETF from Morgan Stanley coming. You got lots of other products coming in to buy up Bitcoin. You've got this Meta Planet about to duplicate strategies and target Japan out of Florida. You got Strive accumulating more Bitcoin as they can, offering a second layer opportunity for yield. So you got lots of different things. You got the Trumps here buying up more with American Bitcoin. You got obviously the traditional ones like Galaxy buying Bitcoin. You've got the Cardanos of the world buying up Bitcoin. So it is just game on, guys. It is just game on. So I feel like it's just incredible. So the monetary system is changing. It's pretty awesome. The bond market is coming over to the old Bitcoin, and exciting times. All right, so that's kind of the play there. Now on the downside, we'll talk about downside quickly. Bitcoin would have to get something like $8,000 and stay at 8,000 for about 4 years before Strategy had to rethink, their strategy here, maybe re-equitize it, and that chance is extremely low. So I really that's probably just covering the downside argument because this itself is self-fulfilling, pushing it up to the upside, and that's what's so special about it. So that's kind of the play there, and let's jump over to the MSTR price. So MSTR price, obviously this is the Strategy common stock, and we looked at Stretch, which was that preferred stock or dividend yield targeting the traditional debt markets. We've got Strategy itself at the moment closed at $138, obviously coming off the back. It had a nice little run too to 150. I think it was $152, and that actually touched the 50-day moving average for Strategy, and which is the MSTR ticker on Nasdaq. And now it's had a bit of a violent day, came all the way down to $132, and is currently at 138. So the lowest price that we had during the Iranian war period here, which I think's been running for 20 days, if I remember rightly. I think it's 20. So 20 days. So that's kind of in this zone. So let's have a look. Let's do a little drawing here. It lasted 20 days. I think something like that, isn't it? Something. Let me just double check. I'd like to be fairly accurate with that. 20 days. Oh, is that 28? Well, maybe I did it too long there. Let me do that one more time. 20 days. We're after the 20 days. 20 days. So yeah, that bit closer there. So 20 days, it's about there. So 20 days, we've had this volatility in play. We definitely got out of the lower range though, right? Lower range was like $139. We did flick down here for 1 day, probably at the big, well earlier. I'm not sure what caused that exactly, but $104. So there is volatility to be had, right? So you got to be able to absorb that. That's why you have these stretch products where you earn a yield, and they're so popular because you strip out the volatility and you offer people high yield, taking some of the capital appreciation out of the Bitcoin price financially, right? So that's the idea. But here, of course, you get the upside with volatility. You get the big upside, and as we said, the stretch product and other products, the ETFs and other products, Strive and Planet are all going to help buy up more Bitcoin. Obviously, you got lots of other people buying Bitcoin around the world. You got, I think Kazakhstan Central Bank was talking about that as well. You got lots of people buying up Bitcoin, and so slowly and surely you're going to start structurally lifting the floor price as well. So we're at 138, and we peaked out there. So keep a look out there. We've still got this kind of, I think, generally upward momentum because we're still kind of outside the channel. We tested it, but kind of closed to the top of that area. So keep a look out for MSTR. We've got one more day left of the week, of course. Friday's trading, which will be starting in about less than 8 hours, about 7.5 hours from now. So you can keep a look out for that, the last trading day, see where it goes. So that's pretty cool from Strategy. So I think that's a big game changer. Hopefully that's summarized that pretty quickly. So basically, the preferred stock products offered by Michael Saylor, basically vampiring the hundreds of $1 trillion of debt markets and bringing that capital in because they're offering 2-3 times the yield. and all backed, over collateralized from Bitcoin itself, the store of value, and that's the magic. That's the magic. So it's just early days. This is the last 3 weeks, let's say, that's really taken off. We're going to watch that moving forward, but I suggest to you it's probably just going to start running away, and it's going to help put a structural floor on the old Bitcoin. Like I say, last announcement they had was I think it was about 8 times or 9 times the amount of Bitcoin that was mined. So it's completely game changer there to the upside. So that's kind of the play, and we're probably going to let's get a lot of second party ones building on top of that. So that's the bond market, new monetary system, bond market coming over, right? That's the capital pumping up both the liquidity and the price of Bitcoin. Gonna be good. So that's the first one. The second one, of course, digital asset treasury is leading in a different way. In fact, a much broader way, and arguably from a lower base. So pretty exciting. Now we've still got obviously the money's being raised a little different here. We've got obviously BMNR is the ticker here. Tom Lee is the guy leading it. We showed you in the photo earlier. Tom Lee is doing some pretty amazing things. He's extremely well connected. A lot of people follow him. He's proven himself. A lot of people become rich through him. He's been obviously covering stocks and been obviously on TV a lot, CNBC and all that. He's one of their main contributors, and of course also he is the chief investment officer, I think, for Fundstrat. He's also launched his own ETFs with the granny ETFs, which is I think it's about $2-3 billion under management. And then of course he's set up, taken the leadership and gone all in on Bitmine immersion. And he picked up the chairmanship I think June last year. Did the first capital raise, which I think was something like 150 or 250 million dollars. Can't remember which exact number, but somewhere in that ballpark. Launched 28th of June, and then started buying Ethereum prolifically, kind of following the Michael Saylor strategy, because there was a wide open territory there for that. Now we'd already seen, Game Shack, I think it was, for SBET already start buying before, but then he came in with Bitmine immersion, and man, they've bought so much Ethereum, it's insane. They have bought over 3.75% of all Ethereum since July last year. So you're looking at 8 months. They have gone to from zero to 3.75%. Now Bitmine immersion used to be an old Bitmine, and they've still got about 192 Bitcoin, but they're actually now the number one digital asset treasury, and it's pretty insane, right? So looking at this, looking at the price at the moment, we've got 21.41 for the price of Ethereum. We obviously, broke out of this little dip here, and we got all the way down to 2,100. This is on the hourly charts there, so we're going to actually move to the daily. Actually, it's a too short a time frame. But we're down here at the bottom here. We ended up getting down to a low of 1742, which is just below Tom DeMark, the famous timing guru. He said, I think 1790, so just below that. We kind of retested it for a second time, which he did suggest would happen, and that was feedback from Tom Lee, who's got him one of the two clients for Tom DeMark, and they got to 1800, and since that time we have been capped out around about 2100, and of course we broached that. We climbed over the 50-day moving average, and we went all the way up to almost 2400 there. And we've come back down, obviously, on oil issues and the Strait of Hormuz and things like that, gas plants being hit, that sort of stuff to pull us down. And so we had all that drama play out, red candles, and now we're sitting at 2141, still looking pretty good actually. But we want to get over the 22 mark. 2200 mark is the 50-day. We want to get back over there, so we'll look to see whether we can climb over that over this weekend. Like I say, we do have the trend that crypto is kind of like software. And growth stocks typically do well with high oil prices, and so hopefully we'll see this lift up in price on the back of that. That's kind of what we're expecting. That is the Tom Lee interpretation of what's happening. It makes a lot of sense. So we got some pretty key marks there, 2200, and also that idea that we will rally even with high oil prices there. And of course we know that we've got oil prices around 95 to 105, $106, let's say, at the moment. But like I say, we have seen all the European countries now reverse their position, and looks like they'll probably send some ships to do some policing of oil containers going through. We're also seeing alternative routes through Saudi Arabia's pipeline and other setups being happening. More production coming from reserves, both through I think OPEC or something like that, I think it was, and also obviously Japanese and others that have large reserves. So those are all playing out too. So we're at 21.40 at the moment with the price. Obviously the target there for the 200-day is up at 2,800, and we kind of look like we're trying to break out of that bottom range. So is that the bottom? Tom DeMark thinks so. I definitely feel like it is too. And so yeah, we've just got a bit more battling, and I think we're up away from here in the end of March and through to April. Looks pretty good. So that's kind of the ETH price there. Now, what's going to help give us structural purchasing on this chart, like we saw for Bitcoin, like Strategy was doing for Bitcoin and other entities? Well, also we obviously got ETFs. We recently saw, now we can have even better ETFs on Ethereum. Why is that? Because recently we had a BlackRock launch their ETFB, which basically is not just buying ETH for corporates and institutions, but actually buying ETH and staking the ETH and earning a yield, which is even better. So we're kind of, for those that want safe money, you're earning in probably about 2.6 to 2.8% in Ethereum, and that's even better. So we've already seen the first week of BlackRock's ETFB, $250 million already come in, and that's just starting to run away, because I think the first day was about 115. So look out for that. That could end up bringing billions of dollars in to the buy Ethereum as well. And a lot of them may very well think it's the bottom here as well. And so a game on. They also know that the digital asset treasury under Bitmine is also buying up all the ETH, and they know that they've got a big plan for Ethereum and the new monetary system. So it really is game on, guys, really is. And of course, these guys get on the phone with each other and have lots of chats, believe you me. So that's kind of the play there. So we got 21.38 at the moment. So we got ETFs, obviously, but we got the digital asset treasuries, and I want to talk about that. So, the ETFs are going to be buying all this stuff up, and because this is where all the mega themes are happening, right? Well, the mega themes, stablecoins, the Genius Act last year, massive. We've seen Circle, obviously, is listed on the NASDAQ. That's been racing. It raced in the last couple of weeks from $50 to about $140, I think it was. So you got Circle running away with the stablecoin boom. I suspect that that's going to continue up and to the right in time. And I don't see that unabating if we're going to have trillions of dollars of stable coins. We've only got a couple hundred million now, couple hundred billion now. Imagine, a couple $trillion, the valuation of companies like Circle going to be pretty intense. And we will recently see them, raising, minting, billions of dollars worth, at least $1-2 billion worth of new USDC. And of course, we've got more players coming in, USD1 from the Trump family, and many other stablecoin booms, of course, moving forward too. And of course, that's a big part of crypto, the most profitable part, arguably, besides maybe some of the wallets, the big dexes like Uniswap, but certainly mega profitable. So we've got all that playing out at the moment, and we're sitting here with Ethereum, just waiting for these big trends to play out, and they're playing out in real time. So we've got stablecoin boom happening. We've got tokenization, RWA, happening as well. So we're getting all these companies bringing over. We had big companies just announced now that are big, billion-dollar AUM managers. They are announcing that they're buying hundreds. They're tokenizing hundreds of millions of dollars. That's what they do, is they just do $100 million. They get used to it. They firm up the product, the security, the safety, the confidence, and then they come in all in. Then they go all in, and that all happens within a year, essentially. So they just do a couple in a month or two, make sure it's all working well, and then they get confidence for their clients, and then they just ratchet it all the way up. And before you know it, you've taken all that TradeFi stuff being tokenized over on the blockchain, in particular, of course, Ethereum there being the chosen one. Now, there also is stuff happening on Solana and other chains, but Ethereum really is the chosen one because it's been a robust chain, right? A robust chain that just keeps going. So that's pretty huge. We got big announcements today on that. And so the big financial firms are coming in and tokenizing, and that's going to be massive, right? We're going to be seeing big things happen in that space. We covered a video on that about a week ago. You can go check that out on tokenization. So we've got the stablecoins, we've got the Genius Act there. The Genius Act has to be regulations out by July and will be enacted by January 27. So that whole thing is going to play out for the years ahead, and it's going to be a massive re-rate of crypto just on that. We got the tokenization RWA. That's going to be massive. We've got a lot of companies flooding in, the financial companies flooding in, the BlackRocks, the Morgan Stanleys, all coming in, doing debt products, equity products, financial products, all sorts of things coming in. And that's just beginning, really ratcheting up there And we covered that the other day in a video, so you can go check all that stuff. We obviously got AI and agentic AI coming into crypto. That's happening really, really fast, so that's going to be huge. And that's going to be massive, massive money. We've got the creative market coming in. That's going to be massive money and adoption for Ethereum. It really is going to be play. And of course, AI agents can't have tax IDs and people, but they can be take a wallet. They can have a crypto wallet and they'll do payments to payments. We've already seen that happening between AI agents. So all that stuff is going to blow up. It's going to be absolutely huge, and all adoption and value for the Ethereum blockchain. Obviously, there'll be some other winners out there too. So that's all happening around the space. So there's some pretty big mega themes there. Obviously, there's many other niches out there. When I say niches, big markets like real estate, tokenizing real estate and things like that. Those are all huge, hundreds of trillions of dollar markets and big opportunities in that space. So all that stuff is bringing value and adoption to the chain, and also the new monetary system built on that. So pretty big deal. So we're going to have equity market, debt markets also coming there, finance as well. But the vision gets bigger, right? So those are some of the big themes, but the vision is actually bigger than all those as well. Bringing all those together, obviously, is huge. But Tom Lee is taking a leadership role in all that. So let's see where Bitmine immersion is at the moment. So we've got the list here of strategic ETH reserves. These are the DATs, or digital asset treasuries. And we see that Bitmine immersion is the leader there, BMNR, 4.6 million Ethereum. They're targeting 6,034,000, I think it is, Ethereum. It's 5% of the total supply of Ethereum. Remember that 30.5%, I think it's closing on 31% of Ethereum is also staked in the validators, earning yield, and about 3 million of this 4.6 million ETH is currently being staked by Bitmine immersion. But I suggest to you they're going to stake it all very shortly because they're about to launch their own staking platform called Maven. And that is going to be not just Ethereum but multi-chain, and that's also going to be earning them a top yield on the chain. So keep a lookout for that. Probably, I don't know, 2.8, 2.9%, something like that. And that's going to end up earning them, potentially $350 million a year, which is a huge amount of money with no debt and virtually no expenses. I think their team's about 7 or 9 people in their team, so that's about it. So it's game on there. We've also got SBET, Sharplink. They're doing a lot of innovation in the DeFi space. So they're doing their own thing, but they're not going to be the leader in the thing, right? So Bitmine's going to be a leader. Sharplink's going to offer some very important DeFi space products to TradeFi markets, and so they're going to play a role there. But that's kind of where we're landing there at the moment. Then we've got Ether Machine not doing so much at the moment, the Ethereum Foundation and all the rest, right? So we do have a number over 100,000, Golem, Mantle, Coinbase, a bit digital, all over 100,000 ETH. But we're not expecting too much from these. A lot of them haven't really done too much. The other thing, of course, we may see is Bitmine immersion may do some buying. They might buy out some of these other digital asset treasuries. That's one way of getting to their 6 million. They may also just continue to do other OTC deals and, of course, buy on market as well, right, to hit that 6 million. Now, 6 million is 5%. Theoretically, Tom has indicated that they could go to 10 to 12% and not impact the chain too adversely. So, it's a bit like Michael Saylor as well. They might get to 1 million Bitcoin and then just continue on. And imagine if you got $1 million Bitcoin at a million HAL Bitcoin, you get 2 million, you've probably got $10 million Bitcoin, right? There's the logic there. So just to keep note of that, that's more of the upward projections of where this could potentially go once they've both reached 5%. That's the play. So that's where we are right now. Now, Bitmine is not just doing that. Bitmine is doing a winner takes all, being the big digital asset treasury, and they are going to be, I think, even more broadly taking a bigger role than even strategy to some degree. But they both work together, right? The Bitcoin and Ethereum working together. Remember, 90% of the volume amongst these two, and they're both helping the whole crypto market blow up. So if you think you're going to do well in crypto, a lot of the money that's coming into crypto is going to come through these two digital asset treasuries, right? And you can thank them later, right? They're pumping your backs. And so they are going to be helping. Tom Lee's going to be doing, not only are they going to have the staking and all that money, but they're also going to be acting as a payment layer, for bridging TradeFi and traditional markets and the crypto markets. As this monetary system comes over the blockchain, they're going to be playing a key payment system rail, and that's going to be huge. So not only institutional but also retail. And so it's going to be a pretty big deal there. So they're helping a lot of the institutional stuff come over, tokenization and everything else, all those themes that we talked about. And it's going to be a pretty big deal. They're going to do a lot of payment stuff. Now, on the other, we see them. So who do we see Bitmine working with? Well, we see them working with Arc Innovations. We see them working with Kraken Exchange. We see them working with the ETH Foundation. They just did a 5,000 ETH OTC. So we do see them working with a lot of these key players within the sort of crypto investment markets. We see that all happening, but we actually see them going beyond that, and they're going into other markets. They're going to be going into the AI markets, the digital ID markets, the new social platform markets, because why? Not only are they going to be bringing institutional and corporate money into the system and helping them tokenize and realize value on the blockchain, but they're also going to bring mass adoption. So they're basically joining up the technology and the money from institutions with the retail adoption, and then matching them up together, and therefore you've got a new monetary system fully matured. Fully matured. And this is a process that may take up to 10 years, right? That's why Tom Lee gets 10 years, take up to 10 years there. And how are they doing that? Well, how they get the retail? Everyone's talked about, we're going to get mass adoption. We're going to mass adoption. Well, how are we going to get that? Well, you have to get the big influencers, right? You have to get where all the people are listening, where all the people are watching. And of course, we saw recently the Bitmine Immersion has done a deal with Mr. Beast, right? So Mr. Beast there getting $200 million investment. And of course, that is, he went and spent that money on a Leap app, which has got us a huge discount to what it originally was valued at, and he's going to be using that to obviously do massive, basically a whole new sector of his business will be financial products to Generation Z, Generation Alpha, and Millennials, right? So, and it's also going to capture all the transitional wealth of generations, right, where people inherit and things like that. So it's going to be a pretty big deal. And of course, Mr. Beast has 1 in 3 people watching his videos in the world that are online. He has hundreds of millions of views, something like 500 million, I think, just a month on 2 videos alone. And of course, what's he's expanded into? He's expanded from just content. He's expanded into consumables with the festivals, chocolate, and many other products like that. He's obviously getting into entertainment, obviously in a broader way through multiple platforms, and he is now getting into financials, which will be his most valuable. Financials will be most valuable. Now, the problem that Mr. Beast had was that he was spending almost as much money he was earning on these big videos, right? So now he's expanding into consumables and financials and other sectors. This is what's going to make him truly wealthy, rather than just breaking even almost all the time. Not that he was entirely breaking even, but this is going to make him truly probably the first $1 trillion influencer in the planet, right? So Mr. Beast got valued at Beast Enterprises at $5 billion, and Bitmine's got a $200 million position in that. And of course, Mr. Beast is going to help bring mass adoption. So you're going to have mass adoption for Ethereum, guys. And if you hadn't worked it out already, it's a game changer, right? It's a game changer. So that's huge news. So it's exciting stuff. We got Diamond Hand in the house there, the hardest working man in New Zealand. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Not New Zealand at the moment, but yeah, definitely one of the last Kiwis alive, that's for sure. We're there. We're still here. So documented on YouTube. But so we got that happening. So we got a big thing happening. You see how we got the institutions coming over. He's going to be bringing them over, showing them how it's done, providing them opportunity as payment rails built on the top of the digital asset treasury and its huge asset value and money. As ETH goes up, of course, Bitmine will explode in value. It's currently worth about $11 billion. It will just go to 20 billion, 30 billion, 40 billion as ETH goes up at a premium. So there's a thing called an MNAV, and we will probably get 2x, 3x, 4x. So you're getting a leverage on Ethereum itself, plus it's earning all that ETH, right? But it's going beyond that. It's going to be setting up payments layer for Ethereum. It's going to be setting up mass adoption. Finally, the holy grail, mass adoption. So you're getting a 2-for-1, institutions and retail. And that retail is going to be going beyond just financial products, so apps, financial services. And we saw them recently, go from 500 million shares to 50 billion. That could be for a share split, right? Because if Ethereum gets really valuable, 12, 20, 60K, then Bitmine's going to go from 500 to 1,000 to $1,500. and you want to split that up a little bit, you can do share splits to make that a cheaper price. $10 again, just by issuing more shares to the existing holders. But actually, even though he's probably going to do that, I think he's going to probably sell either BMNR or Ethereum or somehow through those apps through Mr. Beast's platform. So we're going to keep a lookout for that. That's the big play. That's the big play, right? And that would be huge amount of demand coming in through those apps, those financial apps, which I have, budgeting and financial management and all the other things with it, coming through those products, probably directly into Ethereum. So that's what we're looking at. And of course, the DAO will play a key role in setting up that payment platform. So that is the road to mass adoption, and hundreds of millions of people, hundreds and hundreds of million people in those generations are getting to really pick up crypto without having to know everything about a wallet, right? It's all done for them through that. People, a lot of people, they don't want to get into DeFi. They don't want to learn all the tricks and all the things you have to do. They don't want to run their own, security. And so these Mr. Beast app, these Bitmine immersion apps will help do that. So keep a lookout for that. So we've got some pretty big stuff happening in the short term. The Maven staking, we've probably got these financial apps coming this year, and so mass adoption coming very quickly through Mr. Beast's influence. He is the number one influencer on the planet, and reaching the biggest market, and it is a game on, right? Game on. Now there are a few other alternatives that can get mass adoption, not necessarily for Ethereum, but for crypto, and one of those will obviously be platforms like X, with X Money Wallet, once they add crypto into it. So there will be a few other players, but perhaps Mr. Beast will be the one to win them all with that influence. So we shall see which one wins at the most market share. But certainly there's always one or two, three players in the world that win out, and it looks like Mr. Beast is probably one of the best bets there. Now, something's gone even further from Tom Lee, right? So Tom Lee has also started to invest in companies called ALGO and Orbs, and this also includes Sam Altman and his WorldCoin technology, which is digital ID through scanning your eye. I mean, we're not big fans of that in DeFi because we always know that can be used against you with tracking everything else once that got all that information. But this is the technology that they're taking forward. So they're matching this digital ID, this real person as they call it. And of course, Sam Altman does have some pretty dodgy backtrack records as well. So he's got, I don't want to get into all that, but if you know too much about that. But putting him aside, you got the technology, and this is a big play where Tom Lee is coordinating these things and getting investment as well as positioning. So you got this digital ID, you've got this AI, so they're doing AI as well. So you got all this, and now you're mixing it with the blockchain of Ethereum and Mr. Beast. And of course, recently, even today, Tom Lee was reiterating that Mr. Beast and Sam Altman have been introduced, and they're going to be doing a deal together. So you're going to have now that WorldCoin getting mass adoption through Mr. Beast, and of course that would include Ethereum, arguably as the blockchain layer there. And of course, Sam Altman there through Orbs, looking to do a new social media platform, social community platform, all in the base of all this technology, right, with digital AI, crypto, and of course AI, and with the ID, so that you got real world representation there. Now, obviously, all these things can be used for bad things, and that's a different topic. But if we look at the positive side of this, it's a one big community with crypto, arguably with Ethereum as a settlement layer, and mass adoption, right? So this is all the stuff's being built on top of Ethereum, and it's going to be playing out over the next year or two, and probably we'll get a lot of announcements this year alone on that. So pretty big deal there. On top of that, if you thought there wasn't more, there's more. There's probably a lot more than I'm going to say, but on top of that, they've also got OpenAI. Orbs also has an investment in that as well, not just WorldCoin, along with Bitmine, but also has the only corporate access to pre-ICOs for the OpenAI, which so if you add Mr. Beast, which will likely IPO as well, ICO there within the next sort of 18 months, arguably, and then you take OpenAI, well, these are some of the biggest ones on the planet, to IPO as well, and you've got all this investment via Bitmine and ALGO and Orbs. Then you've got two of the biggest potential IPOs coming up, and both of them probably going to have $1 trillion plus valuation. And so you're going to have Mr. Beast get there, go from $5 billion to $1 trillion very quickly. You guys have seen it before, and you're going to have OpenAI go to $1 trillion plus launch. And these are all leverage plays on addition to everything else that Bitmine's doing. So you can see the big picture is truly almighty, truly almighty. So I hope you guys are excited about where things are going. It is a pretty big deal there. So, this is no ordinary digital asset treasury. This is basically a new Berkshire Hathaway, I think it is, that's leading the new monetary system. So in many ways, could be bigger than strategy on Bitcoin. In fact, it could be a lot bigger, and with all those things added up, because you get not just getting one play on Ethereum with the digital asset treasury, which is amazing in itself, but now you're getting mass adoption with Mr. Beast. Now you're getting OpenAI and a technology, and also now you're getting social media platform. All these things together, you're getting a 3 or 4 play for one, and all the big plays. Is just a dream there. So some big stuff happening there, and of course all mass adoption for Ethereum, helping pump Ethereum to way new heights. So you got Tom Lee there talking about potential payment rails up around $60,000 Ethereum. Obviously Ethereum does even better than that in the future. Then you could see it doing some bigger numbers, per Ethereum, 300-400k, etc. There's other scenarios out there, but certainly if we take the network valuation 60k, that could be flippening near at a 25% ratio to Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's $1 million, for example, well, not $1 million, but if it gets to its all-time high ratio, about 9%, that gets us to I think about $60,000. So versus Bitcoin, which would mean Bitcoin's much higher there, 800k or something. So that's pretty awesome. We got Hex Down Under with the big hearts. Good to see Hex Down Under. Big shout out. And so that's some of the big stuff there. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's the strategy. So we've got a lot of stuff happening at the moment. We've got Bitmine immersion there sitting at $21.14. So you're actually kind of buying it in the low range. Obviously, you have to do your own due diligence on that. But actually, it is volatile, but the upside could be absolutely ginormous, right? So we talked about potentially, we get to $12,000 Bitcoin. We could see, $500 BMNR. That's excluding all those other plays that I talked about, the Mr. Beast and the OpenAI and the Orbs and, all that sort of stuff there. WorldCoin. This is just the treasury there with the ETH price as a leverage. And if we get an MNAV that goes to 2 or more, you're getting 2 times. Instead of buy Ethereum for $2,000, you're going to get $4,000 value, right? That's kind of the idea there as a share. But obviously, it's at the bottom of the range, so we can keep a look out for that. Did peak out all the way out at the beginning, back here in what month was that? In June when it was launching, July here when it launched. Got all the way up to $157 a share. How about that? So keep a look out for that. It's come down, but this is if this is arguably the bottom for Ethereum, then the only way is up, right, as a leverage play. We're going to keep a look out for the MNAV with all these bullish plays. You can see the MNAV probably going to have a pretty healthy premium and off the way there. So keep a look out for that. BMNR going to be the talk of the town there. Pretty cool. So we do have a little video here too. I think we can play it, so hopefully it will play. This is from Tom Lee today, actually, today. It's a little blurred, but you can hear the words. Tom Lee says Ethereum would get 62. That would be a network re-rate for Ethereum. And that excludes a lot of these other players in some ways, in some regards. But we'll see. Let's stick it out.
Quarter the price of Bitcoin. And we shaded this line here that we think Bitcoin can get to 250,000, which values Ethereum at somewhere between 12,000 to 22,000 if it gets to its 2021 ratio, or even 62,000 if we get to Ethereum priced as a payment rail. Quarter the price of Bitcoin. And we shaded this line here that we think...
All right, so you can sort of see some of the indications, some of the upward value just on the Treasury alone. But man, this is a game changer. This is arguably, if all these things take place and they are in process of happening, and you can see the big vision, the big chess moves that are being made by Michael Saylor and Tom Lee to vampire the debt markets and the equity markets, but actually add a lot of extra value that's not even there yet in social media, AI, and mass adoption. So there's a lot of stuff, as well as obviously all the institutional stuff, which is still early in the early days. So it's going to be truly fantastic, and Ethereum there being a key player. So what would you expect to happen? We'd expect, let's start heading convergence to the gold market cap, go from 2.5 trillion to 40 trillion, and well beyond that potentially, as the new monetary system picks up with stablecoins, everything else. We're expecting Scott Bessent said, $4 trillion by 2030 as game on from there. So the only really big thing left to go is there's two things actually, but the first big one is the Clarity Act. That's going to be another boom because that gives formal regulations, but we just had the SEC give clarity around security and commodities. But that'd be the final seal of approval. There would be the Clarity Act, and it does look like the increasing chart's been up and down since September last year. It's supposed to be done already 2 or 3 times, but it does look very promising for April with a backstop of possibly 21st of May. So pretty exciting. It looks like we might be getting a compromise deal there between the banks and the yield battle, and so that's promising too. So that's also another bullish thing specific. The other thing we might see this year is also the White House. You talk about acquiring Bitcoin and altcoins. So keep a look out for that too. That's something that would be an additional thing that would really drive hyper value. And the markets move very quickly. You guys know this, but we're in new territory. We're in a monetary system being taken over by the blockchain. Bitcoin, Ethereum will dominate. Some other chains will do well, like Solana, like Chainlink for around information. They'll be a bit late possibly in the move, but certainly these two chains looking very, very promising. Ripple, of course, is the XRP with the banks. So we've got payment systems, particularly on XRP and Solana, possibly doing quite well there. But stablecoins, tokenization, and the rest of it all on Ethereum, and of course the store of value there, and bond offerings, vampiring there on the Bitcoin, and vampiring all that value from TradeFi, all coming over to the blockchain. It's going to be glorious, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this overview. If you want to get more insights, of course, join our strategy club. The QR code there is just below there, and of course, if you want to join in the video description, you can hit that too, and also pin to the top of X. We've got that also, so you can scroll up there and go through the Whoop store. Only just over $1 a day to join up and get all the info as it's passing through. So lots of updates all day, every day. So there we go, lots of cool stuff there. Wookie says Tom Lee. Yeah, Tom Lee, a name that you should know well because he's helping to pump all your bags. Now, of course, this will also help pump all the other chains, including Pulse Chain. And of course the Magic Cup, right, all that ETH money from the sacrifice, that 171,000 ETH, let alone maybe all the other stuff from the AA lobbies and everything else, are all going to get pumped into massive high values, go from 650 mil to billions of dollars, and imagine just shaving a bit of that off to pump Pulse Chain. OMG. So lots of upside there for the old Ethereum there. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And now in 20 minutes, see you in Strategy Club. Links, like I say, in the QR code in the video description and pinned to X there. Catch you then. Take care, everybody, and bye for now.